All right, so good morning to our online listeners. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. As you can see on the timer, the session starts right now, and the recording of the session starts as well. So
Recording in progress.
may I request that we settle in so that we can invite the opening panel to join us up on stage. So welcome to the 10th Africa Domain Name System Forum. For those coming in for the first time, we had day 0 yesterday, which was dedicated to the Kenya Domain Name System Forum, and today is the first day of the Africa Domain Name System Forum. So I want to invite you to look at the program for the session, which is on dnsforum.africa. It has all the relevant information pertaining to or concerning the Africa Domain Name System Forum. But of essence or of importance today is the session for day 1 on 5th of October. We do have the Zoom link for those who might be asked by our colleagues who are following online that can enable you to follow online from wherever you are in and outside this room. This meeting is hybrid. Now, for our participants who are online, kindly ensure that you are on mute. We will have a remote moderator, Magali, who will be collecting any feedback, any comments that will be made online, and will transmit the same to the session moderator. For this session, I'll be the moderator. For subsequent sessions, the same will be submitted to the session moderators. For those in the room, after each panel session, we'll give you an opportunity to intervene or to contribute to the session. All you need to do is to raise your hand, and we'll select you. And please, as you prepare to make your interventions, be brief in the interest of time and be very specific so that you are able to be addressed as appropriately. Otherwise, without further ado, I would like to invite the first panel, Pierre Dandjinou, if you could kindly come up the stage. I would also like to invite Mr. Vincent Ngundi from the Communications Authority. I would also like to invite Sally Costerton from ICANN to join us up on the stage. I would like to invite Mr. Joel Karubiu, the CEO of Kenya Network Information Center, and Mr. Geoffrey Shimanyula as well to join us up on stage. So ladies and gentlemen, the 10th Africa Domain Name System Forum is hosted by the Kenya Network Information Center. This is the second time they are hosting this forum, and this is also the first time after COVID that we are hosting a physical Africa Domain Name System Forum. Just to remind us that this journey began in 2013 in Durban, South Africa, hosted by the .za Domain Name Authority. In 2014, it was hosted by the Nigeria Internet Registration Association. In 2015, it was hosted by the Kenya Network Information Center. In 2016, it was hosted by ARTP, the regulator in Morocco. In 2017, it was hosted by Tanzania Network Information Center in Dar es Salaam. In 2018, it was hosted by RCEP in Benin.bj. And in 2019, the forum was hosted by Botswana Communication and Regulatory Authority. Of course, in 2020 and 2021, we had a virtual forum, and 2022 marks the resumption of the physical forum, and we are glad that Kenya Network Information Center is hosting us. Without further ado, I would like to invite Joel to say karibu to our guests who are coming in, and also to thereafter invite the board chair of the KeNIC and our representative from the Communication Authority, who is also not new to this space, Mr. Vincent Ngundi. Joel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Barrack. Good morning and welcome to the 10th Annual DNS Forum. My role today is very simple, is to invite you first to Nairobi, Kenya. I hope you've already enjoyed and sampled a bit of our Kenyan hospitality. For those of you who've not sampled too much, I think what you may have sampled is the traffic, but that will change as we go along. Mine is to just first thank the DNS AfTLD ICANN for accepting to work with us in terms of bringing this great event to Nairobi. We as a KeNIC are proud to host it for the second time, the first time I think in 2015, and we look forward to 2 days of engagement, 2 days of conversation, 2 days of actually getting to know each other. As Barrack has said, we've just come back to a physical meeting. So we hope that these 2 days will be also a time for you guys to reconnect across the different countries where you've come from, your friends who you've been meeting on webinars. This is a time also to check on them. How have they been? How is business going on? Today I had the privilege of picking 4 of my fellow CCTLD managers, and I'm excited that I'm able to meet them for the first time physically. So mine is to welcome all of you to Nairobi. Feel at home for any challenges or any requests you may have. We and my team are on ground at the reception area. They'll be around. You'll see them dressed up in Africa DNS Forum t-shirts. Please, if there's any need, please let us know. Next, I would like to invite, okay. I'd like to invite the board chairman of KeNIC, Mr. Geoffrey Shimanyula, to just also greet all of you. Karibu.
Thank you, Barrack. Good morning, everybody. It's a bright day, right? Those of you who are visiting Nairobi for the first time this year, we've just come from a very miserable weather environment. Everybody was walking around looking very miserable. You could think that the temperatures were at minus something, and yet you're only at 13 degrees. So we are very happy that at least we can now see the sun. And yesterday, I told those who attended the Kenya DNS Forum that if you look on this side of this building, you're likely to see an animal you've never seen in your life. Please find time to just look the other side. This morning, we saw some buffaloes, there were ostriches. You can go and take a selfie with one so that you can remember while I was in Nairobi, I took a selfie. For us, we are very honored to be hosting the Africa DNS Forum. It's a big honor for us because we know not many countries in Africa have had the opportunity to host you. So for us to be doing it, not for the first time, but for a repeat moment, we are very grateful, especially at a time when as a country, we are just beginning to relaunch ourselves after the tough moment of electioneering and campaigning. We are over that. We are beginning to rejig ourselves as a country. So even those of you who are looking at business opportunities in this country, this is the time for you to engage. There could be no better time than now. Everybody is positive. We have a leadership that is telling us that we know what your problems are and we'll address them. So please, if you've been asking, can I go and invest in Kenya? Can I go and invest in Kenya? Can I go and look for a partner in Kenya? This is the time to do that. Please, you're welcome. And for the next 2 days, that is today and tomorrow, we are trusting and hoping that we'll also get to learn quite a bit from because we have diversity in terms of experience and expertise. We want to learn from each other. Let us also make new contacts, okay? Don't just say, look, I speak to so-and-so on email only, but today if they're here, make sure that you get the phone number, get all the details so that you can start engaging from a practical position. In here, I know we have lots of experts. We have representatives from all over the place, including the government. Let us do what we have to do. And last but not least, I just want to appreciate the Africa Top-Level Domain Organization, the Africa Registrar Association, and ICANN for giving us the opportunity to host this forum again. In Kiswahili, we say, asanteni sana. Please feel welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two more speakers that I would like to invite up on stage, and one to be promoted as a panelist. I would like to invite Ali Hadji, the chairman of the executive committee at Africa Top-Level Domains Organization, and Mouhamet Diop, the chairman of the African Registrar Association, who is joining us online. So if he can be promoted as a panelist, he will be speaking, and Joel will invite the speakers in the order that they are listed to then make their remarks. So Ali, if you can come up on the stage, and Mouhamet, if he can be upgraded to a panel, to a speaker.
Since I've been asked to support Barrack on this, I think, Pierre, we can invite you to give some opening remarks.
Mouhamet is also available if it is the anytime for the participation. Good morning to everybody.
Please go ahead, Ali. Pierre.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. How should I say bonjour? Habari ya asubuhi. Well, I would really like to thank you all for actually joining us again for this Africa DNS Forum, which is going on now for all the last 10 years. My name is Pierre Dandjinou, and I'm a VP for in charge of stakeholder engagement at ICANN. Well, I would like to really thank our host here, especially the Communication Authority of Kenya, the board of KeNIC, and also so many partners that we do have. And as ICANN, for instance, we've been working closely with the AfTLD, with the Africa Registrars, and many others to make sure that this really happens. And also would like to thank my colleague from ICANN, especially our meeting constituency, that's really supporting, heavily these events. Well, the journey, as Barrack said, started 10 years ago in Durban. In fact, when ICANN rallied a few numbers, of partners to do a few things. It was about creating a platform, for discussing, about the DNS in Africa. It was also about, building capacity. And this really echoes the ICANN, what we call ICANN Africa strategy, which has a kind of two-pronged approach. The community itself developed that strategy, which was requesting ICANN to make whatever was possible to build capacity, so that African could really contribute to the work of ICANN. And also, it was also about, the DNS industry. So this is quite important. And that was the first, ever forum in Africa where registrar, could meet and discuss. A good thing there was also that we were able to expose, the African community to the broader sort of DNS industry. So global leaders came to Durban, and it was quite interesting to have those quite important discussions that took place. I think that journey actually provided us some few opportunities. Of course, we went to many places, you know, at least we visited 8 African capital cities. We have a sizable number of themes that we developed. That was about, you know, exchanging, you know, knowledge and then kind of building partnerships. It was quite interesting, I would say. Of course, as far as we are concerned at ICANN, right after this first, you know, edition of the forum, we had a few recommendations that came out, and of course, we make sure that this is included in our action plan, and that's what ICANN has been doing. So we've been actually supporting the DNS forum. We've been kind of contributing in terms, of course, of our resources, you know, human resource, but also what it takes in terms of exchanging knowledge, knowing more about what ICANN does, what you could also be expecting, you know, from ICANN. So all of this went well. So I would just like to dwell on 1 or 2 conclusions that we did have. Because whatever ICANN has been doing in Africa, you are going to hear from our own Sally, which is our director of our global stakeholder engagement at ICANN. Also, the one that's going to talk about, you know, what we do have in stock in Africa in coming years. So I won't get into those right now. I just wanted you to notice that right from the Durban meeting, some of the things that we did, and I would like to kind of focus on those, was that we established what we were calling DNS internships. DNS internships because we felt that we needed to expose, you know, the African sort of community to the global work. So we managed to have a few of them, you know, visit some of the important, you know, registries, you know, all over the world. Some went to Europe, to US, and also to Asia, so that they actually learn the job. It was where we really started our capacity building. A few things, something that we do call the DNSSEC, for instance. We just wanted to make sure that we secure the DNS from Africa. We had the DNSSEC, you know, roadshow that was conducted. A few countries were able to sign their own file. We still need to work hard on that. And I would like to thank a few of those who really made it happen. And I guess Alain is in the room. Alain has been our consultant on this. He's been to many of those countries, and definitely we did have some results there. So I would like to really thank him here. Alain is an asset. He's quite cool. He's kind of sort of self-contained, but he's a capacity builder. It's important. Of course, we do have special program for the African Registrar. We'll be hearing more. The Diop will be talking about this. And finally, we have this what we call the DNS Entrepreneurship Center in Cairo, and that we set up to be able to assist, you know, to support, you know, African that needs developing the businesses and things like that. So all of this happened. Of course, now that we are at the 10th anniversary, some of the questions that we may put ourselves is, okay, what worked, you know, what didn't work? I think we provided some time for that. A few sessions will be discussing on these things. As far as we are concerned at ICANN, yes, what worked? Definitely we were able to continue to pursue this forum. Despite, you know, the COVID period, we were able to actually communicate. We were able to still do what we have to do, and it went on. Of course, there are a few things that we also would like to highlight that didn't really work. I'll be talking on this later on. For instance, how many ICANN accredited registrar did you have? Since, I mean, they come 10 years, sorry, how many of them, how are they thriving? I mean, these are issues that we need to, if you are talking about the business, you know, environment, all of this. So these are questions there. So briefly, that's what I just wanted to say about, you know, how I can actually use that opportunity of the forum and some of the flagship project that we are having. again, I would like to thank you all for being here, and really hope that we are going to not only make stock of the 10 years forum, but actually look forward. And the session also are there to the future, of the DNS in Africa. With that, thank you for your attention, and I would like to pass over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre, for those words. Next, I'd like to invite Ali Hadji, President AfTLD, and my boss in other forums, as we are members of AfTLD. Ali, you can give us your opening remarks.
Thank you, Joel. Let me switch in French, please.
Barrack, what were the channels?
Karibu sana. Mesdames et messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vincent Ngundi of the Communications Authority of Kenya, Mrs. Sally Costerton, Senior Vice President of Global Stakeholder Engagement at ICANN, Pierre Dandjinou, Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement for Africa, Mouhamet Diop, Chairman of AfRegistrar, who is online with us. Good morning to all of you present here in this room. And I would like to greet as well everybody who is with us participating online. Welcome to this 10th edition of the Africa DNS Forum. It is a very important step because we are now present face to face for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. I hope that as of today, things will start to go back to normal so that we can continue our endeavor to develop the internet in Africa. We need strong collaboration in a market where competitiveness is high. It is dominated by GTLDs, generic top-level domains, and we need to increase the level of development of the different CCTLDs. I am Ali Hadji of the AfTLD, the Africa Top-Level Domain Organization, and I wanted to stress that point because we can't help but see that unless we coordinate our efforts, we can't really profit from the DNS industry. More than 57% of the market is dominated by GTLDs, and it's only 36% of the market worldwide that is with CCTLDs, according to an ethnic study. So this means that it requires a lot of investment at the level of the infrastructure, investments that will enable us to ensure security in the way that the internet is used, but also investments in order to strengthen and build capacity. As of today, if we don't build capacity at the level of what we are discussing, of what our programs reflect, the threats that exist will endanger our efforts. Registrars, registries, and domain name managers must work together. The registry cannot develop for as long as registrars are not at the same level in terms of development. what I think is important for each party in the chain is to truly carry out its promotion and its policy at the level of technical development as well as legal development to carry out our work. We are in Africa, and we must promote our initiatives. As Pierre Dandjinou, who spoke before me, just said, it is a fight, it is a strategic plan that we need to work on. And I remember that the previous ICANN CEO, Sahad, as well as with the board chair, it was in Prague, during a meeting, an official meeting actually, they went and met the African community. It was in a somewhat dark room. And at the time, the ICANN meetings organized by the African community were actually not part of the ICANN meetings. And that is the time when an African strategic plan was started. And all of the efforts of the African community in Africa started. So this started back in 2013, and now we have 2 virtual sessions. We're at the 10th session at this point. So this is a challenge. This is a very important point. In Africa, we have resources. We can carry out concrete actions in order to truly promote the DNS industry in Africa. We must use these events in order to highlight the true causes that represent an obstacle to development in Africa. Once we understand what the causes are, we can develop concrete solutions. Once we have developed these concrete solutions, we can certainly identify who the key stakeholders are who can contribute to our development. I think the first stakeholders, of course, must be Africans, helped with key partners. And so we have ICANN. We are here present at the DNS Forum. We have ISOC, but there are other partners that can contribute to setting up true solutions for the development of the internet in Africa. I also spoke about capacity building and investments that we need. And I think that this should be also applied to the area of research. We also need to be involved in education. And I think that education can help in our approach. You know, Africa is a blank slate. We do have growth in spite of the low rate that we can see right now, but still we are moving in the right direction. And so what we need to do is to adapt our culture to the technology. This is quite important. Indeed, the technology exists, but we also have our culture that exists. And so these 2 things need to work together without any restrictions, without any direct obstacle that might prevent the digital development in Africa. I wanted to share these thoughts, but I also have to thank all of the countries that welcomed the previous editions of the forum. And since we are in Kenya today, I wanted to specifically express my gratefulness because this is the second edition that we have in Kenya. And it just so happens that today is the 10th edition. And so we will celebrate that in particular. I would like to thank you. And I wish you great success during the upcoming sessions.
Thank you very much, Ali. I'd like to invite Mouhamet Diop, as he's online.
Yes, good morning. Did you hear me? Chair, did you hear me? Is that okay?
We can hear you, Mouhamet.
Thank you. Can you please activate the sharing screen for me just in order to start, because it's going to be much easier to share 2 or 3 slides for you.
Tech team,
please allow us to share screens. No, they have deactivated the animator have deactivated the sharing screen for participant unless he allow me to get in.
Just try and share your screen now.
Now it's okay. Perfect. Thank you. I think it's okay. All set. First of all, Karibu to that wonderful country, Kenya. And before starting my speech, I just want to really take this opportunity to thank the host, the country host, the communication authority for allowing us to have that meeting. And also great thanks to all the organizers and the hosts for this meeting. ICANN, AfTLD, AfRegistrar, and all the other sponsors that allow us to have that opportunity today. 10 years is a long journey, and 10 years need to be celebrated. But I just want you to recall not 10 years, but 27 years, because 27 years is 95. For some of the old people like Pierre, he will understand what I am talking here about, is the beginning of the African community to understand that they need to be one in order to defend the interests of the continent. So what we're talking here about is not only about the DNS evolution in the world, but about how the DNS have been used in Africa, how they have impacted the development of the continent, and how we have participate in making the DNS work much better in Africa. So they have many communities that have been working hard to make these things happen. The CCTLD have been set up and in 2004, and it's only in 2013 that we have seen the first organization of African registrars in the continent. The first registrar, African registrar in Africa start in 2006. So it's not very old, 15 years only. And it's only, let's say, 2013, starting with the first African DNS forum that we have the African Registrar Organization also set up. So what does it mean? It means that it's a long journey, of course. We have so many ambition and really huge hope in helping the continent being really present in a market where they were done. But down the line, as Pierre said, let's say we are into 2022, very few accredited ICANN register have been set up. Well, of course, if we look at the CCTLD development, they work with ICANN accredited registrar, but they also have their own accredited registrar that are country code. So it's a little bit mitigated when we look at the global numbers, but in terms of having more industry involved, more structured, developed, and trying to respond to the highest standard in terms of taking care of the interests of the users and all the others, I think that we don't have many. If you look at the numbers of registrar, there are very few in the continent, and it's still a challenging aspect. But the most important thing is we need to have in front of us two paths: the path to success, and the path to failure. That really what prevents us from achieving the goal that we already have in terms of developing the market. It's because it's a very complex environment and very challenging. And I think that the previous speakers already highlight some of the difficulties that we have in the market. So what I'm just trying to raise here is, I think that for each moment of our history, we need to understand some key principles. And I think that it will help if you understand that many challenges we are facing here are not just because we did not try. We have tried, but it's just like sometimes people think that when you fight and you achieve something, it's granted. It's not. Sorry. Oh. If you look at, I just want to share with you 4 lessons that we have learned from this 27 years journey. The first one is Africa must count on themselves to develop and to build this continent. It's not just a talk. Seriously, it's not only a talk. It's real. The second thing is no progress, no development is reversible. Sometimes people spend 20 years to build an institution and just 1 year to destroy it and pull it down. And we really need to care about that. The third lessons that have been taught during that journey is that we need to strengthen and sustain institutions instead of building on events and people. Why I'm focusing on that one? Because they have so many things that we really want to promote and to build. But since it is only one person who is taking care of it, or one company, in case of failure of that company, or if that company disappears, all that initiative fades and goes to zero. The first one is we need to recognize and value our men and women when they're alive, not just wait when they're dead and pass away, and then we just recognize what they have done for the continent. And we need also to recognize and value our local experience. Why I'm trying to share with you this, it is because this year, we have taken some time just to think about who are the person and the different institutions who help set up all these things for the interest of the whole continent, the African continent. And we don't need to wait 10 years later or just wait for this institution to disappear or this person to pass away in order to recognize what they have done for the continent. And I think that this opening ceremony is just the tribute to just thank all the initiatives that have been raised since the beginning of the DNS forum. Some of them are still active, some others have retired. Some of the organizations have disappeared, some continue to exist. Concerning the African Registrar Association, it's still challenging for us because We know that the continent need more active registrars, need a more vibrant ecosystem for the DNS, need investors, bankers, insurance company, people from private sector to be more aware of the opportunity on the DNS. But we still need to recognize that it's not sufficient. So we don't have the impact until now that we're expecting. It doesn't mean that the job has not been done, but the challenge was initially not to let international registrar get the market and just be the more active one on the African continent, but how we can make local private sector being more active on the DNS business, not only technically, but also on the financial and economic side. And I think that what Pierre have raised in the program of highlighting the enforcement program, the incubators, all these things have really passed for implementation, but we need at any national level to have a strategy on how we can work on strengthening and building a vibrant ecosystem for the DNS at the national and at the regional level. I just want to thank all these participants and all the members of our association, but I need really to confess that the challenging is coming. The DNS is not forever. So we have many technical issues that we are facing, and the African continent need to reinvent itself. That's really what Mmadi was saying, the CEO of the chairman of the African TLD, CCTLD organization. So this is really the message I want to share at that point. I'm not going to keep that mic for so long, but thank you for the host. Thank you for the community to follow, but the challenge is still there, and we need really to be more proactive and in a more cooperative and cooperation manner. Thank you for your attention and have a good meeting, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much, Web, for that introduction. That is not only 10 years, it's looking back 27 years. Next, I'll invite Sally, Senior Vice President, Global Stakeholder Engagement, and Senior Advisor to the President of ICANN and the CEO. Sally, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much to all our partners. For the record, I'm Sally Costerton. I lead stakeholder engagement at ICANN. And firstly, I want to thank our hosts and our partners. Without you, we couldn't be here. It's as simple as that. Thank you to the Communications Authority of Kenya, to AfRegistrar, AfTLD, to our local host, and to all our participants who have joined us this morning. I want to reiterate, my colleagues have said before, how fantastic it is to see you in person and to know that we have many people with us, like Mouhamet. Great to see you again, Mouhamet, by the way, online, who are also with us. This is our future, this hybrid model that we're in today. This is what the future looks like. And I want to come back to that because you at African DNS participants have had a lot to do with that. But firstly, congratulations on your 10th anniversary. I was at the Durban meeting. Only late, actually, because I got to the airport to discover that I didn't have enough pages on my passport. So I was sent home to go and get another passport. And I came to Durban, and there was this first event, and it was absolutely extraordinary. And Pierre talked about that. Many of you talked about that. And it has been an extraordinary journey. And I congratulate you as a community on your tenacity. You have kept going, even through the last 2-3 years where we went completely virtual. And you have been an extraordinary example to the world at ICANN. I have shared presentations with the ICANN board and with the ICANN community globally, showing them that in many cases during the COVID pandemic, participation in Africa in ICANN's meetings actually went up. And this is something that I want to come back to this point, because you are innovators and you show the way. And I want to encourage you also to think of yourselves in that way on a global platform, as well as addressing what needs to be done here in Africa. You might not have been certain what those 10 years would hold when we met in Durban all those years ago, or some of us did. But you have done a lot to foster, as a multi-stakeholder forum, very important point, collaboration between registries, registrars and registrants, this critical part of the domain name infrastructure that you have been part of forming. And you've provided a platform for yourselves and for the world to see what the potential is here in Africa. And that, I think, we've only just begun. So I look at the 10 years and you know what? We share an anniversary. I also came into ICANN from, perhaps like many of you, maybe not all of you have started your careers in the internet. I didn't. But 10 years ago, funnily enough, just after that meeting in Prague that you referred to, that end of 2012, I joined ICANN. And pretty much the first person I met those 10 years ago was somebody who I suspect some of you knew very well, Dr. Tariq Kamal. Oh, I'm going to get emotional now, who sadly is no longer with us. And Tariq became my friend very quickly, despite the fact that he was an important man. He'd been the telecoms minister of Egypt. And he had been in many ways, some of you have referred to him as the father or one of the fathers of the internet in Africa. We have other fathers of internet in Africa at this event. So I don't want to claim he's the only one. But he showed me immediately those first early months when I was getting used to ICANN and I didn't understand the jargon. And it was the bottom-up multi-stakeholder model. I'd come from the private sector. What is this thing? This was all new. And he showed me the opportunity of Africa. And he brought that, he was very instrumental in bringing that African group together at that Prague meeting. And right at the beginning, he was so proud of the fact that it was the African community that started to gather together for regional outreach and engagement. And you've stayed in that leadership role ever since. And so I've been with you for those 10 years and we will stay with you into the future. Now, what comes next? Well, what would I challenge you over these next 2 days? Firstly, as all my colleagues have said, make the most of it. These are magic, important opportunities to rebuild your personal ties together and to reconnect on the commitments that we will need to make to each other to take us through to the next period of opportunity. So perhaps it's a time to think about what those goals should be. And I will look forward in our sessions to hearing that. And thinking about, as some of you have mentioned already, who else do we need? What more support do we need to take us to our potential? Because, make no mistake, at ICANN, we know the potential in Africa for the domain name industry and the domain name world is enormous. The speed of internet growth here is high. But the amount of registries and registrars is relatively low by global standards. So the upside potential here is probably larger than anywhere else in the world. And I want to use this opportunity to ask for your help. I think in my time of working with many of you, you have shown the world not only that you care about this industry, but that you believe in the multi-stakeholder approach, that you believe in keeping the internet open and interoperable and sustainable. And never did we need this more than the last 2.5 years. Where would the world have been during the pandemic if we had not been able to rely on the internet? I don't think actually we can imagine that. It is so catastrophic. What would we have been without the confidence of knowing that that extraordinary asset exists and that we can all use it? But we should not take it for granted, because everyone in this room knows that in fact, it is in many ways, as we of course at ICANN coordinate the technical identifiers, but one of the biggest learnings I have had in the last 10 years is in a way, the internet is not about technology. It is about trust. It's about you and us and our relationships. It's about people and it's about connecting people. And we need to take care of the existing way that we organize and manage the internet to make sure that that trust can continue to operate, to give you the opportunity to move forward into the future. So we want to ask at ICANN for your help to show the world what that looks like. But we also know that we want, and we're very committed to supporting you. And we're doing more at ICANN than we ever have before in Africa. And we are scaling up our investment. So tomorrow I'm going to spend some time, and today and tomorrow, with our very good partners here in the Communications Authority, who are working with us on an extraordinarily important major new technology investment, for an IMRS, a root cluster here in Kenya. Kenya, I remember Kenya for extraordinarily friendly people. And my goodness me, when I came back last night, and the man at passport control said to me, "Hello, Sally." And I thought, that has never happened to me in any other country. How fantastic it is to be back in Kenya. And the other thing I remembered was the traffic. And I got in a car and I left the airport, and 10 minutes later I was here, because you have built, in I gather, less than 3 years, this extraordinary infrastructure that is tackling this big challenge. So that shows that when Africans get together to overcome things, my goodness me, you can. And this is extraordinary to me. I couldn't believe it. So we will support you with infrastructure. The root cluster will give speed, resilience, and security here in Kenya and in this part of Africa. And it will make it easier and faster and safer for internet users to access the internet. We are going to announce this as part of a larger, which I think many of you are aware of. We've been working on it for the last year or so, African Digital Coalition. We are actually calling it the Coalition for Digital Africa. And this will be announced formally at the IGF, also in Africa in November in Addis Ababa, for those of you who may be attending. And this is a major investment, not just by ICANN, but it is a coalition of partners, which is another message that has come across strongly in my colleagues' comments this morning. We can't do this alone. We cannot walk alone. We have to be together. And so what ICANN will do is use not just its resources to invest in hardware and infrastructure, but also its convening power. Like we did all those years ago in Prague, that was exactly the same thing. That was ICANN's convening power. And now we will use it in a much bigger capacity here in Africa to bring partners such as the ITUD and also my colleagues here together to work on what do we need to get done to make sure that we can achieve that potential. And you talked about capacity development and CCTLD development. And that is one of the first projects that we have announced as well as the IMRS instance. We'll work with universities. We'll work with business. And when you see it launch in November, if you are interested in participating and being part of that coalition, then talk to my team here in Africa, Bob, and also Pierre. And this is a major part of the work that we're going to do in Africa next year. And I'm leading that on the executive team of ICANN. So I will be taking a close interest in it, and I will be back to see and to help and to everything I can. And finally, you talked about content, Mouhamet, and I wanted to touch on that because this is something that only you can do. We will support you with everything we can to help. But one of the key things we will do is continue to promote and energize the efforts behind universal acceptance and IDNs. And hopefully in the future, another round of top-level domains. But getting that local content, those local languages, that's so important to empower people who don't speak many, many languages in Africa. Only 20% of the world speaks English as its first language, but 70% of the websites are in English. And that balance needs to change, and Africa is a place where that can happen. So in closing, I wanted to thank you all, and thank you to the government of Kenya who's facilitated the opening of our office here. I should mention this, because this is what we did in 2015. I remember Bob fired a cannon and confetti came out. I particularly remember that. But you've been so good to us here, and so good working with us too now as we move into this next level of infrastructure. So thank you all. Now, am I going to say this right? Asanteni sana. No, I don't think so, but I'm doing my best. French is easier, not Swahili. But thank you, and I look forward to a very vibrant 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sally. And just speaking out, partners. That is what we are here for. I'd like to invite Vincent Ngundi, who is from the Communications Authority, representing the host, the country, and all the other hats that are required for this occasion. So Vincent, karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Joe. For the record, my name is Vincent Ngundi. I'm here to represent our Director General, Mr. Ezra Chiloba, who would have really wanted to be here, but he's attending the IT Plenipotentiary Conference in Romania. But he passes your greetings and welcomes you all to Nairobi and Kenya at large. So I have a speech that I'll read on his behalf. And I'll start. Sally Costerton, the Senior Vice President, Global Stakeholder Engagement. Pierre, the Vice President for Stakeholder Engagement in Africa. The DNS Forum organizing partners, AfRegistrar, AfTLD, and ICANN. Our local host, including the chairman of KeNIC and the CEO of KeNIC as well. Participants, both on-site and those who have joined us remotely. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Communications Authority of Kenya, I join my fellow speakers in congratulating the African DNS industry players on this important milestone of 10 years of organizing such a great event. I'm happy to see that the CA has consistently supported this event throughout the years and has thought it is significant to be associated with whenever it takes place in Kenya. The CA also has a long-standing friendly relationship with ICANN and actively participates in the Government Advisory Committee of ICANN. As a country, we were also honored to host an ICANN meeting here in Nairobi in 2010, March of 2010 actually. Locally, we continue to collaborate and assist KeNIC, the company that runs the .k registry, and we actually have been hosting KeNIC at our premises since KeNIC was incepted. That's more than 20 years ago, and we are happy to continue doing that for as long as KeNIC needs it. Established in 1999 by the Kenya Information Communications Act, the authority is responsible for facilitating the development of the information and communication sector, including broadcasting, cybersecurity, multimedia, telecommunications, e-commerce, postal and courier services. Other mandates include facilitating the development and management of a national cybersecurity framework, facilitating the development of electronic commerce, protecting consumer rights within the communication environment, and managing competition within the sector to ensure a level playing ground. So this is merely to show you how closely the domain name system is related to the work we conduct as regulators. And this is because the DNS facilitates market access, communication, competitiveness, and globalization. I think that has been mentioned by other speakers. While I'm not sure to what extent this has been accomplished, we need the Africa DNS infrastructure to be secure and resilient as a technological resource. And I think, Sally, you mentioned something to do with that. So I believe that this is time for us to reflect on this industry and where and how we plan to move it forward. And I think we need to ask ourselves some critical questions. And one of those questions is, and I think Diop mentioned it, we need to ask ourselves critical questions. What can we do differently? So based on our past and the experience that we've had, what can we do differently? Secondly, are we committed to growing the Africa DNS space? Takes me back to Diop's presentation where I counted only 12 registrars in Africa, and we are more than 24 years since the internet was incepted. Of course, recognizing the effort of AfRegistrar towards ensuring that we have more African players in the DNS economy. And that also brings me back to some of the resolutions that the GAC made during the ICANN meeting in Malaysia a few weeks ago, that governments need to facilitate and support underserved areas in joining the DNS economy. So we need to see how best to do that. We need Africans to join the DNS economy because it's a huge economy and we can greatly benefit from it. The other question is how best can we collaborate as an industry with other non-industry actors who in one way or another affect our business? What can we learn from those who have made it? So we really need to speak business when it comes to the internet because it's really about that. We really need to deliberately ensure that we look at all the things that we do from a business perspective. As a regulator, we are not oblivious of the wider macro and microeconomic predicaments of many African digital economies. And this includes limited infrastructure, illiteracy, cost, and the quality of our connectivity. And therefore, I think this meeting is important because we can share and contribute constructively from our various perspectives, whether we are government, the private sector, or academia, on how we can resolve these challenges. I also believe that Africa has these answers and that Africans can solve their problems if they come together in the spirit of togetherness. And that's why such a forum is very important for us as Africans. We have to start moving as Africa, and not just the names industry. We also need to talk about the numbers economy and some of the problems that we're having in the numbers economy. And AfRegistrar has been pointed out. It's an issue that has really given government a lot of concern among other stakeholders, and it's something that we need to engage in. I therefore want to confirm that the CA remains very committed to working with the DNS industry stakeholders both in Kenya and globally in order to ensure that it contributes effectively to the digital economy in Kenya, Africa, and globally. It is also my hope that this gathering will find answers to the challenges we face as a community, as we share your knowledge, expertise, and network during the next 2 days. It is now my singular privilege and pleasure to declare the 10th edition of the Africa DNS Forum officially open. Thank you, and I wish you all very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent, and for opening this prestigious event. And we look forward to interactions over the next 2 days. Next, this group will leave the stage.